Okay, hello friends. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we did today. This is a brief rundown of some of the things. So we started off by exploring some of our new options on Google Meet. So that was super fun. But anyway, these are, excuse me, the two questions we looked at for the do now. So we have the first question we asked ourselves: is this sample a good representation of the population? And we said yes, in terms of like it generally looks the same, and it does look like we randomly picked things. But we also pointed out that it's not a perfect representation because it doesn't have green or yellow people. So sometimes this can happen with random sampling. You just randomly get, things that don't always have everyone in them. But so we'd want to repeat some of the sampling on this one to make sure we get a good representation. Then we looked at this picture to illustrate which would be the sample in the population. Well, the real Harry Potter would be the population, and the sample is something that looks like the population. So we always want to make sure our sample is a good representation of the population in terms of they should look the same. They should, like, the sample is a mini version of the real thing. So this was a kind of a funny visual we had. So we basically are recapping today. We're going through all the different methods and what they are and kind of working on describing them, talking about them, making sure we can identify between the different sampling methods, the ones that are good, the ones that are biased, and kind of what we want to think about. So here we looked at a couple visual examples of each of the methods. So this one is a stratified sample because we have the groups broken down into colors. So if we're going to sample things, we want to make sure we represent each color. And so in this case, this is a way to stratify the samples. So you would pick from each of the colors randomly, and then you would have a whole sample at the end. A cluster sample is already set up like a cluster. So a cluster, basically already the group has the majority of the colors, and then you just pick a couple of those groups. You don't have to go through every single grouping. You just literally pick whole groups, and it's a lot quicker to make a sample that way. So this is one that generally gets confused. That's kind of why we looked at this visual. And then these are all the methods we've done. So these are the ones that we have talked about so far, and this is a visual example of each of those to make sure we can kind of picture what the words are telling us when we read a description. But for the simple random sample, in this situation, we can see we've got kind of green people and blue people. And so in this case, our sample, we'd want to make sure has a little bit of each of those. So randomly, we could do that and get what we need. Systematic, we would pick a starting point. We would go to count so many and then pick the next one, count so many, pick the next one, and then go all the way through. Stratified, we're again we're gonna group them by color in this case, and then randomly pick from each group to guarantee that our sample is going to be representative. We get a little bit of everybody. And then cluster, we just grab a couple of clusters. So if you see, like, this cluster's got some greens and some blues, this one's got a green and a couple of blues. So if we grab a couple of those, we'll have our sample be representative that way. So clustering is a little bit easier to pick. Systematic guarantees you're going to go through the whole thing. And then simple random generally works out as well. It's a pretty quick one to do. Stratified is nice. It lowers variability because you're guaranteed to get, a representative sample by picking from the groups. So then we looked at a couple methods, reminded ourselves of what to not do. So a convenience sample sometimes is convenient. It's easy to do, but it's not always the most representative. So in this case, we talked about this is not a great method because if we look at our population, the population has orange and yellows. And if we look at our convenience sample, it was easy to take, just take first two rows, but we miss all of the orange and the yellow people. So it's not a good representation. Same thing with this one, taking volunteers. If you are asking a question, so let's say this is the guy surveying, we can see a lot of the people that answered are green, and we got one red, but there's a lot of other red people in the population here. So with volunteers, you're basically only going to get people that care about, the question you're asking or care to respond, really. So they're going to feel passionate and have a strong opinion about things, and so we don't generally like to take volunteers. And then what we looked at were these questions, and these are open for you to look at again if you want. So you can click on this link, and these are some multiple choice practice questions for identifying the different methods of taking a survey. And then at the end, we looked at practicing the written description of the things. So we have some feedback from the week. So these are linked on the Google Classroom post. And then each grouping of people got a question to answer based on kind of what they need to practice. So in this case, I kind of split people between stratify sample practice question and a cluster sample question. Those tend to get the most confused on this. So that's what we did today. This is due on Monday. So make sure you get that done. And that's our 4.1 recap for today.